Hello everybody, this is Mr. Storm, and in this video we are going to finish our Notes app. Right now it looks good. We have all of our HTML, we have everything, our CSS looks good. Now we need to work on the JavaScript. So let's go to our script.js file. It's important to make sure that you still have your link to your JavaScript file in your HTML, so make sure you have that. But we should have a blank JavaScript file from which we can begin working. So let's talk about what we want to happen. First, let's create the functionality for when we click the Create button, it'll create a new text box. So in order to do that, we need a reference to that div called Notes Container right here. And we need a reference to the button that we want to click in order to create a new text box, right? So let's get a reference to that notes container. It's going to be a const reference, meaning it's not going to change. It's going to constantly be the same thing. We'll call it notes container. We'll set it equal to document.querySelector. That's going to allow us to choose something by its class. So dot notes hyphen container. That is a query selector. So it's going to find whatever has this notes container class attached to it and store it inside of notes container. Okay, let's do the same thing for our button. So we'll say create btn equals document.querySelector. And we're looking for the class btn. Okay, perfect. Now with those two, what we can do is we can create an event listener on this create button. So create btn dot add event listener. What an event listener does is it creates, it listens for a specific thing to happen. It looks for a specific thing. So what we're doing is we're going to say when we click the button, we want something to happen. That's what an event listener does. So we need to give it some arguments. The first argument we need to give the add event listener function is what kind of event are we looking for? In this case, we're looking for a click. And the second thing we want is we want it to run the second argument is what function do we want to run? What do we want to do? Now, we don't need to create a new function for this. There's a shorthand in JavaScript. We can say we want a function, and the function is going to be this function. So we can create a new function just by using this, these keystrokes here. So inside of this, what we want to have happen when we click the button, we want to create a new variable called input box, and we're going to set that equal to document.createElement. And the element we want to create is a paragraph. Okay, so what we're doing is we are going to create a paragraph element inside of this notes container. Okay, let's go ahead and delete the, and we want the class of that paragraph to be something specific. And then we're also going to create an image inside of that paragraph. So I'll show you how we're going to do that here in a second. Let's delete these because we don't want our text box on the screen yet. We're going to add paragraph elements to this div using this JavaScript. So now our notes are gone. Good. So we're going to create a new variable called input box. We're going to create a new paragraph element and store it inside that input box. We also need to create a new image. So we'll say let image equal document.createElement, create element, and it's going to be an image element, img. So we need to create a paragraph and we need to create an image. Then we need to add a class to our paragraph. So we'll say input box dot class name. This is going to add a class to the paragraph element we've just created, hyphen input box, or input hyphen box. There we go. So we've added a new class name. So it's just like if we were in HTML, I'm just going to do it down here. It's just like if we were to do this, paragraph class equals input hyphen name. It's just like doing that, but we're doing it in JavaScript. Okay. Let's set our input box to be editable. So we're going to set its attribute. So one of the attributes of a paragraph element is whether or not you can edit the text. And we are going, that is called, the attribute is called content editable. Content editable. We're going to set that to be true. That way we can edit the text inside the paragraph. Okay, and then we also need to add the image. We need to add that button, or the delete button image to the paragraph element. So let's say image dot source equals, we're changing the source of that image element we've created to images / delete dot png. Okay, now we need to add both of these things into the notes container. So we need to add the paragraph and the button, and the image into the notes container. We can do that with one very easy line of code. Notes container dot append child, meaning add a child to this element. So we want to add input box. We also want to append child, the image. Okay, so that code right there, what that should do is when we click the create button, that should add our text box to the screen. So let's refresh, and it does. So when we click create notes, it adds new text boxes to the screen. Okay, beautiful. Now we want to be able to delete text boxes when we click on this button. No, not Grammarly, get out of here. We need to be able to click this button and delete text boxes. So let's do that. We can do that by creating another event listener. It's pretty easy. This event listener is going to be on the notes container. So equals, oh, actually no, dot add event listener. There we go. It's also a click event. And this time we want to run a function that we're calling E. So we're going to create a new function we'll call, and we'll pass in the argument of E. Oh, I forgot a keystroke. There we go. So what we're doing is, whenever we click, we're going to run a function and pass in the argument of E. That's going to allow us to choose or to determine what did we just click on. So we'll say if e.target, so whatever we clicked on, .target, .tag name. So the tag name of the thing we just clicked. We're going to use 3 equal size and caps img. That's going to basically say if we clicked on the image, then we do something. And what we want to do is e.target.parent element, meaning the parent of this element. We're going to remove it. Oh, parent element dot remove. So that's going to delete the text box whenever we click that text box button, or when we click this delete button, if Grammarly doesn't get in the way. So create notes, we can delete it. Create notes, create notes, create notes, delete, delete, oh, delete, delete. Okay. So at this point, this basically works the way we want it to, except we want to be able to store our notes long term, and we want to be able to show our notes whenever we open up our new screen, or whenever we open up the screen. So to do that, we need a variable called notes. So let's go up to the top and type let notes. And this is going to be equal to document.querySelectorAll. And we're going to say all input boxes. So all input box. That's going to take, it's going to grab every type of element that is input box, or that has input box as a class. Okay. Then What do I want to do first? Let's create this. I'm going to create a function called update storage. This is going to allow us to store the information that's inside of our boxes. So we'll say function update storage. Oh my gosh. All right. So update storage. And inside this function, I want to basically just say local storage, meaning our browser's local storage. We're going to set item. We're going to set notes container.html. Or let's say inner HTML. What that's going to do is it's going to store all of the HTML, the text basically, inside of our notes container. So inside of all of our notes containers. It's going to store that. It's going to update our storage with that thing. Okay. We also want a function called show notes. And what this is going to do is it's going to notes container.inner HTML. It's going to basically do the reverse. It's going to grab whatever's in local storage and add it to the notes containers. Okay. Oh, semicolon. So this function will save what's in the text. This function will display what's in whatever we've saved. So we have show notes and update storage. Okay. Let's go down to this notes container button here. There are some other things that we want to do. So let's say we clicked, but we didn't click on the button or the delete button, right? Let's say we clicked anywhere else inside. So we'll say else if e.target.tag name, so equals p. So let's say we clicked inside the paragraph element somewhere. Then what we need to do is we need to set notes equal to document meant dot query selector. And it's going to be dot input hyphen box. So it's going to set our notes equal to that. Now we need to do a for each loop. What this means is it's basically going to loop through whatever we've typed into our text box. And for every time we've typed something new, it's going to do something. So we'll say notes dot for each. We'll say nt is our iterator here. We'll say equals to or greater than. That's going to allow us to run this this loop right here. So we'll say nt on key up. On key up, meaning whenever I release a key, it's going to do something. It's going to run a function, and the function is basically going to call update storage. So what this is saying is whenever I click inside of the text box and I start typing, for every character I type, it's going to update my storage with that new character, right? So it's going to store that in my local files, okay? All right, now we need to do the same thing, but for, you know what we can do? Let's do, here's the problem. Let's test this out. So if I click create notes and I start typing, it's going to save that in my local. But watch what happens when I press enter. It does what it's supposed to do, but it's going to save this as one long string of text. Okay, so it looks like it's behaving, but it's really not. What we need to do is we need to actually add a key down event to this text box that will fix it, You know, let's ignore that now. That's just a small issue. Let's see. Let's call our show notes function down here at the bottom so that we always refresh our page with our new notes. Let's refresh. Let's create some notes. This is a note. Create another one. This is another note. And let's refresh our page to see if those come back. They didn't. Here's why. Why? My update storage function works. My show notes function works. Get items from local storage notes. Okay. All right. While I think about that, let's change the functionality of that enter. So document.add event listener. And this is going to be a key down event. We'll say the event is equal to, greater, or equal to or greater than, which is going to allow us to create a custom event here. We'll say if event.key equals enter, then document.exec command, we will insert a line break. And let's set it to prevent default. Okay. Cool. And let's refresh. I wonder why it's not saving. We're calling the update storage function. Well, this should be working. Let's go ahead and call it a day. For some reason, it's not working. I don't know. We can troubleshoot it later. But once your code works effectively like this, then you know you're good to go. I think it might be a replit issue. I think replet's just not saving my local storage. So I will just kind of call that just gremlins in the system. Go ahead and turn in this project, and I will see you on the next one.